we are seeing the re-paganization of Western civilization. We're seeing the re-paganization of it. Because if you study church history, and this sounds like an advertisement, but we don't make any money off of it or anything, so I'm just letting you know. But I've taught, the first class I ever taught after I graduated from seminary was church history. And I love teaching church history. People always ask me, what were the 2 classes you took in Bible college or seminary that have helped you the most in doing Christian apologetics? And it's real easy. Greek, church history. Greek and church history. Because knowing the original language of the Bible, and it's great to know Hebrew too, but most of the time, even when the Old Testament is quoted, it's being quoted from the Greek translation of the Old Testament anyhow. So if you have to know one of the 2, I think knowing Greek is the most important. But so much of the problem is misrepresenting the Bible, and knowing its original language is extremely helpful. But then the other place is church history. Man, most of us don't know where we came from. And as such, we are deeply influenced by those who have come before us, but we don't know how we're influenced by them because we don't know anything about their lives or the conflicts that they lived through. And it's also so incredibly encouraging to see how God has worked with imperfect humans in the past, because he's still stuck with us. And that means he can still keep working with imperfect humans even now. And to recognize how faithful people have been in the past, even in midst of persecution and all these things. But when it comes to church history, it is so helpful to recognize that the things we're facing now, we're not the first generation of Christians to face them. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some pretty unique things in the modern situation. I mean, no generation before now has dealt with a combination of nuclear weapons and genetic engineering, okay? So when it comes to certain levels of technology, okay, there is a uniqueness there. But so much of what troubles the church today, the church has faced in the past. And how it handled it can be of great benefit to us to understand. How the church dealt with persecution those first 2.5 centuries. That was one of the greatest causes of division in the early church. Well, when we start feeling persecution, it'll probably cause division yet once again, but will we have learned from the past, the mistakes they made and the successes they had? Well, not if we don't know anything about them. And for a lot of evangelicals, let's be honest, we don't. Ignatius? Well, which Ignatius? Which century did he live in? Do I really need to know anything about some guy named Ignatius? I mean, his nickname would have been Iggy. Does it really matter what Iggy thought about anything, you know? Well, actually it does, especially because whether you're talking about Ignatius of Antioch or Ignatius Loyola, there's about 1,500 years between them and a huge difference in their beliefs. And yeah, it is important. And what we discover is that in that early church, in that early period, this was the great conflict between the demand to bow the knee to Caesar and the recognition of the lordship of Jesus Christ, and how the church has worked that out, and how the church has had to struggle to understand that down through the ages is vital for us today. Sometimes we get the feeling that we're running into all this stuff and we're the first people, so we're just have to figure it all out. Man, I don't know about you. I don't want to have to figure it all out. I want to look at what God has done with his people in the past, not to elevate them to a secondary position of authority with the Bible, such as has happened in Roman Catholicism with the idea of tradition. Not that. I have to let them be what they were, warts and all. I mean, one of the things in studying church history is you discover that you can learn to appreciate someone and still be honest about where they were really coming from and where they had real blind spots. If you know anything about the Reformation, then you know that the reformers loved quoting from Augustine. But have you ever read much of Augustine? There were things that Augustine believed that we would go, really? But the fact is, if we don't come to be able to appreciate what people would say in one area, if we demand absolute theological perfection, if we will only listen to someone who is absolutely just like us, we end up in an echo chamber. and looking at an extremely narrow little spectrum, and we end up missing a lot.